Alright guys, so Gotham Knights is out, and I want to talk about my first impressions for the game so far. I haven't beat it, this isn't a review, and we're going to keep it quick and short. Sometimes I try to make these first impressions videos and I talk about too much, they end up being 20 minutes long, so we're not going to do that. So first off, if you want to see just raw gameplay, or just my experience with it live and more content, not a short form, the live stream is 1 or 2 videos below this. I streamed everything I've played so far. I want to say it's 6 hours, and then right after that is the Call of Duty live stream that's about 3 hours. So if you want to watch either of those in just the raw gameplay form, those are both there. So if you don't know what Gotham Knights is, it's a beat 'em up Batman game, much like Arkham City, Asylum, and Knight, but less story focused and more open world. But instead of trying to sell it in the typical linear fashion that those games are in, this game takes an episodic approach. So typical gameplay loop, we'll talk about this a lot here. What are you doing in this game? Well, there's your combat and your clues is essentially what the whole game is broken down into. You're going to spend a lot of time looking at clues and figuring out what clues you need to do what. If you just want to do main missions, here's the list of clues you need to do this main mission. If you want to do side missions and open world activities and exploration and collectibles, here's the clues you have to find. And there's 2 different ways to get clues. And depending on the type of clue it is, depends on how you have to get it. So either just through combat and defeating enemies through different mission types, they drop clue fragments, I'm going to call them, that as you collect more, give you more clues. And each whole clue gives you a new crime to stop. So let's say you have a bunch of clue fragments that you've collected from doing these missions. They add up, you get 10 clues for the night. Next time you go out, you'll have 10 crimes to stop. These are major crimes. There's always going to be some type of lower crime or lesser crime that has lesser enemies, not so much of a focused objective and is easier, and these are comparable to your open world activities or just your enemies that are usually scattered throughout the world. And so while your main missions are going to be level based, while you're in an interior environment for most of them, like any other Batman type game, if you want to stick to that franchise, you do have a lot of side missions here. And like I said, with this clue system, the way everything works is essentially you have to stop crimes to unlock the location of main or side missions, and then go do those to get new gear and upgrades and skill trees and all of that stuff. So let's talk about how this episodic night system works. So essentially, you go out and you have all of these things you can do, right? Whether they're major crimes or the minor crimes, what I would call open world activities, main missions, side missions, collectibles, unlocking fast travel points, all of that good stuff, right? You do whatever you want to do in this dedicated night, and then you go back to your base of operations and end the night. And then depending on what you did that night, how you did, if you failed some things, if you completed certain other things, you'll get rewards, obviously, but that'll also dictate the next night. So going back to that clue system, depending on how many clues you collect in night 1 will depend on how many crimes there are to stop in night 2. And that sort of escalates from there. This, combined with constantly getting clues to unlock more crimes at higher difficulty to level up your character, is how the central gameplay loop works, along with just progressing the story. So now that we've talked about how the game works, I would typically address story here, but we're not going to talk about that here as this is first impressions and I'm only 6 hours in. What I do want to talk about is the actual gameplay itself. The combat, it's not on the level of Gotham, Arkham Knight, or Arkham Asylum, or Arkham City. It's not up there. It's not that type of level. There's no counter button, which really could have been helpful here, but I can see how in a co-op environment that could be difficult to work around. But everything else is essentially copy and pasted from the Batman games. You have your dodges, your gadgets, your beat 'em up style things with different abilities, different effects, and all of that good stuff. The way I can explain this gameplay is it's the Avengers game, but if it was good. What I mean by that is, as you see here, as you defeat enemies, along with those clues you get, like I was talking about earlier, you also get gear components. These gear components are used to upgrade your suits and craft new suits, new melee weapons, new ranged weapons, get different mods. You slot all of these in to build your character the way you want to build them, whether you want fire aspect, or freeze, or lightning, or all these different types of damages, along with special abilities. The difference here, mainly, are the skill trees and how combat works when you're playing together. While the Avengers game, enemies seem to have a lot more health and just take a lot more damage, Here it seems more realistic, again, more Batman style combat versus that Avengers game, but where the Avengers game actually has a point up, in my opinion, is the skill tree. There's two types of skill trees in games ever. Typically, the way they're broken down, whether it's an RPG, you beat them up like this, again, the Batman game or the Avengers game, the way skill trees always work is there's percentage upgrades and then there's ability upgrades. Percentage upgrades are things like 10% increased range damage, 5% increased critical damage, 15% increased damage on finishers, stuff like that. Skill upgrades are stuff like using RB and X to throw your shield, and now you upgrade it and now you can lock onto 3 enemies, or the upgrades like in God of War, for example, when you get upgrades for your Leviathan axe and the dagger sword things. I can't remember what to call off the top of my head, right? So those types of upgrades are skill upgrades, and good skill trees have a mix of both. That way you can upgrade your base damage while upgrading new skills and getting new animations and keeping things flashy. Problem with Gotham Knights is it breaks it down into 2 skill trees. A percentage skill tree that literally has nothing but percentages on it, and I want nothing to do with it. And then a skill tree, which unlocks new moves and special abilities, which you see in the bottom right corner of my screen. The skill tree is locked behind player level progression. So what the hell does that mean? So with any game ever, as you progress through the skill tree, you get skills. Once you level up, you get 1 point. Certain skills cost 1, 2, 3, however many points. And you have to choose where to dedicate your skill points. If you want the slam ability instead of this dive ability, or the slide ability instead of this jump ability, blah, blah, blah. Every game ever. And this game does that, but it does it on your percentage skill tree. The skill tree where all of the skills and the flashy abilities and the new animations and all of that stuff is progression locked. So you don't get to choose, I want this move over this move. As you level up, you unlock the next move. So where they give you the choices, the simulation of choice is in that percentage skill tree, which I don't give a shit about. I don't care if my range attacks do 5% more damage. I don't care if my sweep attacks do 10% more damage. I don't care. Like, yes, that stuff is needed to scale you throughout the game, but that should have been the passive skill tree. That should have been the stuff you got as you progress through the game naturally. And the skills and the flashy moves should have been the stuff you were able to pick between in order to choose your style of gameplay. Now, it sounds like I'm hating on the game a lot, but I promise you I'm not. I called it a better Avengers game for a reason. First of all, the microtransactions aren't there. That grind to get certain components, at least to the part where I'm at, to upgrade certain abilities, that's not there. The combat itself and just working together as a team when playing with another player works so much better than the Avengers game. The story and the graphics and the quality of the cutscenes, so much better. A lot of stuff works better, but there's 2 final things I want to talk about before I end this video and play the rest of it and put out a full review. The investigation system, now I just might be an absolute fucking idiot, but I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm sure there's some way to where this makes sense to some people, but I'm just clicking on everything until I get a green check mark. I don't get it, I don't understand it. I've done it multiple times on main missions, side missions. I don't understand. Now, again, that's probably just a me thing, but it's my first impressions. I gotta say what I think. Now, the other thing that's objective is the 30 FPS. Now, we knew about this, we knew it was coming, and honestly, especially in the cutscenes, it's not that bad. It's not that noticeable. No, yes, it's not 60, it's not 100, it's not 144. It doesn't look great, but it's not that bad. The only time it's really noticeable is when you're driving. When you drive through any interior, through a lot of enemies, you get a lot of pop-in, and your frame rate drops below 30. Those are the 2 big complaints. So that's just my opinion on the game right now. Again, I'm 6 hours in. I read that the main story is 10, completion is 30 hours. So I'll probably be in the mid-range of that in the 20s. So when I finish the game completely, I'll make a full review, give you guys my full thoughts on everything, including the story. Obviously, I didn't touch that here because I feel like I'm just getting started on that. But you guys let me know what you think of the game down in the comments below. If you like it, compare and contrast it to the Avengers game, if you will. I think that's a good comparison for this game. And I'll see you guys on the next one.